the midnight narrator returns with a story of a house that breathes and walls that whisper. Tonight, we enter Blackwood Manor with Elias Thorne, a skeptic who was about to learn that some stories aren't just stories. Prepare to have your understanding of reality unsettled. Elias Thorne was a man of logic and reason. A celebrated paranormal investigator, his career was built on dismantling ghost stories and exposing fraudulent hauntings. For years, he had been the bane of self-proclaimed psychics and the champion of scientific explanation. So, when he accepted the challenge to spend a week in Blackwood Manor, a place whispered about in hushed tones for generations, he approached it with his usual air of confident skepticism. Blackwood Manor stood isolated on a windswept hill overlooking a perpetually grey coastline. Locals claimed it was cursed, haunted by the tormented souls of the Blackwood family, whose history was riddled with tragedy, madness, and unexplained disappearances. Elias had read the archives, the local legends, tales of disembodied whispers, spectral figures in the decaying halls, and a chilling presence that drove occupants to the brink of insanity. He considered them folklore, the product of overactive imaginations and the manor's undeniably oppressive atmosphere. The caretaker, a gaunt old man named Silas with eyes that seemed to hold centuries of sorrow, reluctantly handed Elias the heavy iron keys. Silas warned him, his voice raspy, "Blackwood doesn't take kindly to those who doubt. It has its own ways of making itself known." Elias merely offered a polite, if dismissive, nod. The first few days were uneventful. Elias meticulously documented every creak of the old house, every draft that rattled the loose window panes. He set up infrared cameras, motion sensors, and audio recorders, determined to capture any genuine anomaly. The house was undeniably eerie. Dust motes danced in the slivers of weak sunlight that pierced the grimy windows. Shadows stretched and contorted in the corners of his vision, and a constant, low groan seemed to emanate from the very structure itself. But Elias attributed it all to the house's age and disrepair. Then, on the third night, it began. Elias was in the grand library, surrounded by decaying leather-bound books that whispered silent stories of forgotten times. The wind howled outside, rattling the shutters when he first heard it. A faint whisper, seemingly coming from the wall beside him. It was indistinct, a sibilant murmur that could easily be mistaken for the wind. But it persisted, a low, breathy sound that seemed to weave its way into his ears. He held his breath, his scientific curiosity piqued. He checked his audio recorder. Nothing but the sound of the wind. He tapped the wall, solid stone beneath layers of aged plaster. He dismissed it as a trick of the acoustics, the wind finding some strange resonance within the old structure. But the whispers grew more insistent. They seemed to follow him from room to room, always just at the edge of his hearing, like secrets being shared in a language he couldn't quite grasp. Sometimes he thought he could discern fragments, a name, a sob, a chilling laugh. One evening, as he sat by the dying embers in the cavernous fireplace of the main hall, the whispers became clearer. They seemed to emanate from the ornate wooden panelling that lined the walls, as if the very wood was alive and speaking. He strained to understand, his skepticism beginning to fray at the edges. Cold, he thought he heard, followed by a faint, heart-wrenching cry. He got up, his heart pounding, and pressed his ear against the cold wood. The whispering intensified, swirling around him like unseen voices. He felt a prickling sensation on his skin, a sense of being watched by unseen eyes. Over the next few days, the whispers became more defined, more personal. They seemed to know his name, his doubts, his deepest fears. One night, as he lay in the massive, creaking four-poster bed in the master bedroom, a voice right beside his ear whispered, "You don't believe us, Elias? We'll make you believe." Sleep became a luxury he could no longer afford. The whispers were constant now, a cacophony of hushed voices that filled every corner of the manor. He started seeing things in the periphery of his vision. Fleeting shadows that darted across hallways, glimpses of figures in darkened mirrors. His carefully constructed logic began to crumble under the weight of the relentless, inexplicable phenomena. He reviewed his recordings, hoping for a rational explanation. But the audio remained stubbornly silent, capturing only the ambient sounds of the old house. The cameras showed nothing, just empty rooms and swaying curtains. It was as if the haunting was happening just beyond the reach of his scientific instruments, a phenomenon that existed solely within the realm of his senses. By the sixth night, Elias was a shadow of his former self. His eyes were bloodshot, his nerves frayed. The whispers had become a torment, a constant barrage of sorrowful cries, chilling laughter, and unintelligible murmurs that clawed at his sanity. He no longer tried to debunk them, he simply tried to endure them. That night, he found himself drawn to the oldest part of the manor, the original west wing, which had been sealed off for decades due to structural instability. He felt an irresistible pull, a sense that the source of the haunting lay within those decaying walls. Ignoring the "keep out" signs, he forced open the rotting door. The air inside was thick with the smell of mildew and decay. Moonlight filtered through cracks in the boarded-up windows, casting long, distorted shadows. The whispering here was deafening, a chorus of tormented voices that seemed to emanate from the very stones. As he ventured deeper into the wing, he stumbled upon a hidden chamber, its entrance concealed behind a collapsing section of wall. Inside, he found remnants of the Blackwood family, portraits with gouged-out eyes, tattered diaries filled with frantic scribbles, and a chilling collection of restraints. He picked up a diary, its pages brittle with age. The handwriting was erratic, the entries detailing paranoia, isolation, and a descent into madness. He read about family members turning on each other, driven by unseen forces, by whispers that promised power and whispered threats. Suddenly, the whispering in the chamber intensified. He felt a cold presence behind him, a suffocating weight in the air. He turned slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. He saw nothing. But then, the whispers coalesced, forming a single chilling voice right in his ear. "You hear us now, don't you, Skeptic? You finally understand." A wave of icy dread washed over Elias. He wasn't just hearing the echoes of the past. He was in the presence of something malevolent, something that had consumed the Blackwood family and now had its sights set on him. He tried to speak, to cry out, but his voice was trapped in his throat. The whispering intensified, becoming a deafening roar that filled his mind, driving out all rational thought. He felt hands, cold, spectral hands, reaching for him, pulling him into the darkness. The next morning, Silas found the main doors of Blackwood Manor wide open. Elias Thorne was gone. His equipment lay scattered throughout the house, the cameras and recorders silent. In the hidden chamber of the West Wing, Silas found the open diary, its last entry a single, frantic sentence scrawled across the page. "The walls. They're alive." The locals whispered that Blackwood Manor had claimed another victim, another soul added to the chorus of tormented voices that echoed within its decaying walls. They said that on quiet nights, if you stood close enough to the manor, you could still hear the faint whispers, the secrets of the Blackwood family and the fate of the skeptic who dared to doubt, forever etched into the very stones of the haunted hill.